Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, folks. This is Variety Sports Network. We're into episode 15 of Football from Across the Pond. And I'm joined by my regular co-host stars. Shall we call them now? We're starting to say that? Regular co-hosts and stars? I don't know. Well, we'll go with it anyway. We've got Johnny. Yeah, Johnny's going to say so because you just keep winning all your leagues. So that's just your thing. And we've got Craig. How you doing, guys?
Yes, very well, Gary. Thank you.
Good. So episode 15. I can't believe we're past the midway stage of the league. Things are starting to shake up. Things are starting to take shape. I think is kind of what's happening, isn't it? You know, the playoff picture's starting to get a little more, I don't know, clearer. But you're certainly able to start to sort of rule teams out of the playoffs now, I think, rather than work out who's in the playoffs. It's starting to get a bit easier on that front, isn't it?
Mine being one of them, Gary. Mine being one of them.
I didn't want to start with you boys, Craig, but you mentioned it. Yeah, a bit of a gutter, that one.
Yeah, that was it was a gut punch after beating Dallas the week before. You know, you think you're getting back into it, but you know, it's gone
it's football,
now.
Right? It's football. You got to love it. One week you're on top of the world, you're beating the Dallas Cowboys, and then the next week it's a bit of a reality check, isn't it?
It's. I mean, it does spell the end of the season. I think we'll go into Philadelphia. We're 4-7. We go into Philadelphia. We lose that game. We're 4-8 going into the playoff, into the bye week. And I'm going to call it now. I'm going to say that if we lose to Philadelphia after the bye week, it's Jordan Love's team for the last 5 games.
Oh, mark it. Take your receipts. Stamp your receipts. You reckon it's Jordan Love time if you're at 4-8? I know you said if you came out 1-1 of these two.
I think that's what will happen. I think it's time to see if it can go. Rodgers, he just doesn't seem interested anymore. The bye week's always a week where he's not got the spotlight, so he might come out and say something stupid to get the spotlight and.
Just for a change.
Might be dummy time. Might be dummy at the prime time or something, you reckon?
I can see the last 5 games going to Jordan Love if we're 4-8. I really can.
I mean, you've drafted him. When did you draft him? 3, 4
2 years ago. This is his third year. Exactly the same as Rodgers done. 3 years under Favre. Well, Love's done 3 years under Rodgers.
So, I mean, you've got to find out whether or not he's got anything, right? Because he's only had half games here, there, and everywhere, right? He's not looked good. The chances he's had, he's not exactly had a lot of chances, though, is he?
But we're going to, it's decision time on him as well now. Is he the future or is he not? Because we're going to need to pay him soon. If he is the future, we're going to need to pay him. You're not paying someone who you've not seen take the field and know what he can do. So. At 4-8, the season's absolutely dead to the world. There's no coming back from that.
Not with the rest of the. I mean, oddly enough, you would potentially on a year in the NFC North 4-8, and it's the Packers might not actually be too bad on other years, but this year somehow the Lions have started to kind of find wins out of nowhere. The Vikings have streaked off into the distance. So yeah, you've got to be looking at it going, well, you've got to take that chance. I mean, as you say, he's third year now. You've not seen him. He's coming up for. Do you take his option? Do you start to? Is he the quarterback of the future that you drafted for? One, you're not going to be able to find out unless you throw him in there.
And we need to find out. It's as simple as that. So it's. I can see him getting these last 5 games and see what happens. And if he's not the man, then we're going to be 4-13, so chances are we'll draft the man in the next year. But either way, I can see that, and I can see that happening. I really can. I think this is the end of the road for Aaron Rodgers now, unfortunately.
But then you got to look at the fact that Indianapolis nearly beat the Eagles at the weekend.
Yeah,
and for the last minute.
But at this point, I would say it would be a bigger surprise if we beat them than it was that Washington did.
You think of that dysfunction? You'd think they're almost that mailing it in now. You think it's
I mean, I think that's where the Packers are sitting at the moment. I mean, we're a hurt team as well. We've had injuries, we've got injuries, but we're just a beaten team now. The one shining light over the last couple of weeks is that, you know, Watson started to look like he might actually be a top class receiver, which is something that we'll need if we are switching quarterbacks. That's for sure. You know, we will need someone there. It's you can't switch to a rookie quarterback who's never played in the NFL before and have him thrown to Randall Cobb and Sammy Watkins. It's, you know,
there's no progression there. It's short term, isn't it? You've got to you as you say, if you're at 4-8 and you're looking to the future, then you've got to be looking to the future with Dobbs or with Watson. And
what's that? Is it Toure? Is it Sammy
Toure? Yeah,
is he still there, or did he get cut?
No, I think he's still there. He's just not. You know what? Now that Watson's back and Watkins came back and Lazard was out for a bit, that's how he was getting in. You know, but you know now they're back. He's back out again, but he's still hanging about there.
But if they're going to
is he one of the
for the last 5 games, then you should probably just get the young ones out there. Get Lazard, Dubes.
Every chance I mean, I can see it. I really can see it happening. I can see it being a right old change of the guard in the offense. Certainly for the run in. Should it be 4-8? But you know, the Packers and specifically Rodgers, he's one to stick the finger up at the anyone who goes against him. You know, so I can see him coming out and beating Philadelphia.
And then it gets more tricky, doesn't it? Because 5-8, you're not completely out of it. And, I mean, 5-7, wouldn't it?
At 5-7, the run in it's the 5 games in the run in. They're all very winnable. You know, they are all very winnable. But I can't see us going into Philadelphia the way we are playing right now. Going into Philadelphia and beating them, it's then we had one big game against Dallas, and you have to think, was that Dallas being off or? Was that protecting he's not having 6 games in a row in his career, losses in a row?
It's quite bizarre because Dallas pummeled Minnesota, didn't they? So the flip side is, was it a bad day at the office for Dallas, or was it just the NFL doing the NFL like it's done all season, just throwing in?
Well, it could be obviously Green Bay had a hangover after beating Dallas, and then Minnesota had a hangover after that game against Buffalo. Yep. But again, the professional players, they should be getting themselves up for the big games again.
Well, every game surely should be a game. Yeah. I mean, you'd think about it, right? Every game's got to be a big game because they only get 17 of them. I mean, it's not like they're not like football over here, is it? Where they got 92 games. Hey, Sam, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, Sam.
Hey, Sam.
So, you know, as you say, you can go from the highs of, game of the year like Minnesota and Buffalo to you shouldn't fall off a cliff and go completely low and get battered by Dallas. But then again, look at Craqig, as you say, managed to beat Dallas and then fall at the next hurdle. So, you can't, although the expectations is that these professionals and they shouldn't be doing that. Any given Sunday, if anything's been proved this year, it is any given Sunday, isn't it? I mean, Johnny, how did you feel? You thought you probably were pretty confident going into the Detroit Lions game,
Well, I'm not confident going into any game.
I was going to say, it doesn't matter what game you're going in. You wouldn't be confident going in against the Texans right now, would you?
Well, no. Well, not now. When you've got Robinson out for the year, you lost 2 more offensive linemen, and you lost 2 defensive backs and a safety, which is a bit not the best. One was on punt returns. Yeah, that's the same reply as before, but yeah.
It's playing Johnny, it's playing the smallest violin in the world.
I thought you were playing yourself there, Craig. But like I said before, Mary said we started doing this, I thought the Giants would be lucky to win 4 games. So kind of got a brutal running, all the division games, plus Minnesota and the Colts. But like I say, everything's a bonus.
No, it's been a great season so far, and it's the progress that's shown, isn't it, Johnny? That you can actually see progress for a change.
Yeah,
and
I think that's the thing.
Hutchinson had an excellent game again.
He's finally starting to. It's strange, isn't it? That he's looking like the first round draft pick that everyone thought he was going to be, and he hasn't been. He's flashed of it early games, but then just appeared, and now he's seeming to, much like some of the rookie receivers we talked about at Green Bay, they're starting to find their feet and work out what the NFL is about and stuff, and start to come good towards the late part of this season. And also, come on, Johnny, you missed the highlight of the Giants game. Kenny Golladay, he caught a pass.
I know he got 2 passes.
Two passes. I saw a red zone,
and he blocked a run as well.
Huh? I thought it was quite funny that even red zone sort of cut to it, and I think as far as I saw, like MetLife Stadium rose and gave him a standing ovation because he managed to catch a pass. I mean, it's lovely that he did that.
When he caught that pass, I knew it was over. But he stays on the field.
It's only because it was Detroit that they were playing. That's him done now. That's him.
Two passes.
That's his fantasy point. That's his fantasy highlight of the season.
Yeah. In fairness, it was a good block for the Jones run, but apart from that, no. He shouldn't even be in the field. It's just awful. But then Richie James is back in after. Richie James came back, and Hodgins is quite good. And they got him a couple of weeks ago. But Slayton's the number 1 receiver, and he wasn't even on the team half of last year. So
it is a shame you've lost Wan'Dale Robinson, because he looks like he could be a proper good slot receiver.
Yeah, he was great. He was really growing.
That's his second injury this year, so
yeah,
he's also injury prone because that's the second or third time he's been out injured. So
yeah,
do you think it's too early to be throwing injury prone?
But he didn't. It didn't even look that bad, Kevin. When he got tackled again, but just obviously something tweaked and that was it.
Turned the wrong way or landed on the wrong thing or something that Sam knows all about season-ending injuries, doesn't you, Sam? I mean, your one and only weapon on offense is now pretty much done and dusted. So
I don't see him coming back now. Not with our position that we're in this year. So
there's no point in him rushing back, is there?
No, you may as well have him fit for next year completely.
There's quite a few teams rubbing their hands with glee. Sam holding all your draft picks, the Detroit Lions for one, they're sitting going, oh, we could be getting a top 5 here.
The way things are going, yeah. I mean, you got to think about it. The draft is already, your teams are starting to move, think about the draft. You got Seattle probably watching Denver burn to a crisp, rubbing their hands, as you say, because they've got Denver's first round pick. Detroit looking at the Super Bowl hangover that, the Rams are definitely suffering completely. Let's pretend and completely ignore the fact that 2/3 of your team are beaten up or injured or whatever else. But, Super Bowl hangover, it's easier to just, we'll just say it's the Super Bowl hangover because, lazy journalism, if you like. But yeah, so the Detroit Lions, as you say, totally rubbing their hands, doing reasonably okay, starting to put something together on offense. They're going to be picking pretty high on their. So they're going to definitely need to use most of their draft for defense, aren't they? Because they're like a sieve at the back. But you've got to understand, it's interesting how teams' focus now switches towards, the draft and looking at the college football games and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know if you guys look at the college games and try and start to pick and choose or guess what's coming up, or have you kind of, you wait until the draft and see what comes out?
I kind of follow the Longhorns, and I mean Bijan Robinson's on 16 touchdowns rushing and 2 receiving touchdowns as well. And I mean, he's only so he's looking really good. And I think, looking at the teams that need a running back, I think with the likelihood that Jacobs is not going to be at the Raiders next year, they very well possibly could go and pick him up. He's a capable runner. He's almost sort of similar to Jacobs in a way, in the way he runs and the way he sort of jukes from side to side. So it's a possibility. Or he may go a bit later, I don't know. But
running backs, they're not, I don't know, is there a shift in running backs after this year? Do you think there might be a bit more of an emphasis put on running backs? Because, Craig, your 1-2 punch with Dillon and Green hasn't really worked for you guys, but, Saquon's back in the mix. Jonathan Taylor seems to be getting back into it. Derrick Henry, there's still a place for these workhorse backs. Do you think maybe running backs are starting to get a little bit of love back again?
I mean, for me, the running back position is one of those. It's the hardest position. the worst position in football to play, I would say, because there are so many of them out there that are decent that you think it's probably the easiest position in football to play, if that's dare I say, especially if you've got a good line in front of you, you know. So for me, it's one of those positions where the rookies are always going to get in and get a chance, and it's very difficult to get paid at the other side of it unless you're proper special.
That's the thing. It's a churn, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's also the most injury-prone position, and you know, because you're carrying the ball more often, you've got the ball more often, so they get hurt
running into a wall more often than anybody else, aren't you? With some of those defensive linemen. Johnny, you're going to say?
Well, again, the rookie running back to the last 2 years. I know Etienne got injured before the season started, but he's done well this year. It's almost like a rookie.
Yeah.
You got Hall, who was being awesome before he got injured. Walker's doing well in Seattle. Pacheco, and Chiefs.
Pacheco coming through at KC. Yeah.
I mean, and Robinson before he got shot, and Damian Pierce. So the rookies are doing well. So you can understand why the older ones are getting cut, like Henderson and Gordon, and you know, because is Williams going to be the running back now at the Rams?
Yeah, Kyron Williams is sort of the start. I mean, I think he was
working out.
I think actually saying that Akers, I think, was our ran the most for his last game. So you know, God knows what. To be honest, I wouldn't even bother looking at the Rams running back. It's all over the place. It's an absolute mess.
You're right, Johnny. Now for Williams, so
yeah, I mean,
just get him in now. Like
this is where he's probably going to start featuring more. I mean, he is still coming back from an injury, so it is probably going to be, you know, eased in, probably doing a few second, third downs. But yeah, he's going to be. I think I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, he becomes the lead rushing back. Akers will probably get traded. Henderson will probably waive his 5th year. So it's
Henderson got released. So.
Henderson
got dropped.
Henderson released.
They waived him already. Yeah.
They waived the other on Sam.
So, right.
That's what I'm saying.
To be honest, I've not had a chance to look at the wave. I know that we got.
It's about 7 o'clock, so again, you've probably been busy, but yeah, he got waived. That's why I mentioned Williams.
Yeah, so it's Williams and Akers going forward, and you know, we use Powell out the back, we use Skoranek out the back. Am I right in saying we also cut Wolford as well?
Yeah, I saw that. I heard that. Yeah.
So Perkins is going to be the QB going forward. I mean, there's arguments that Stafford won't play another game this season because of the fact he's gone in concussion protocol 2 weeks in a row. Once every other
following
week, so.
Once every week or something, and you do wonder whether or not, because he's not the only one who's done that. I think there was somebody else, wasn't there? It just came out of concussion protocol and went straight back in it again. You've got to think that protocol is going to get tightened up again, which it should do if you know. But yeah, if he doesn't come back, Cup doesn't come back, do you think? I mean, I don't know how long you signed Stafford for when you kind of sold the house for him. He's going to be QB1 next year, right?
Unless he retires.
Unless he goes, I've got him a ring, too banged up, and I've had enough.
I mean, he's from what I remember, I think we signed him on a 3 or 4 year deal. So I think he's still here till 2024 minimum. So if he stays, then obviously he plays till then as QB1. I wouldn't be surprised if 3rd or 4th round pick, third or fifth.
Well, that's your first or second pick, though, isn't it? By the time you get down,
we've got the second and we've got the third, and have we got the 4th? Maybe, I don't know. There's 4th or 5th. One of them we don't have.
Take a flyer at somebody because there's probably.
I wouldn't be surprised if we picked up a quarterback, but then the way McVay drafts, God knows what he'll do. He'll probably. I mean, to be fair, I'd rather us focus on getting linemen than anything else because that's where he's been out weaker.
Well, as we said a couple of weeks ago, whenever it's like
a couple of years, I would,
he's on guaranteed money, isn't he?
Yeah, he's still
got the arm as well, so you've got to play on like this. Well, next year
he needs the protection. I think that's the main thing.
Yes, you get the old line, get him fixed.
Yeah, and to be fair,
it's the same. We mentioned it. Sorry, go on.
To say Perkins is. He's not the saviour to our problems, but he can do a job. I think probably a little bit better than Wolford. He's a bit more mobile. I mean, he's a think he played a little bit of tight end. Oh, he's a bit like a Taysom Hill sort of figure. Played at tight end, plays there,
Gadget
quarterback.
Sort of
So yeah, he'll probably be used a bit more. Maybe sort of to give, a bit of differential at this point. But we just got
different point of attack at least, wouldn't it? Just
yeah. I think at this point we've just got to try different things now. Be a bit creative. We're not going to win next week because we're playing the Chiefs, so may as well just try a few different things, scheme a few different plays, and see out the season. It's over. So
yeah, that's exactly where we're at as well, Sam. Whereas been very quiet about it up to now, so I'll lead you in, Gary. The 49ers are going in the other direction, aren't they?
We're definitely. I mean, we're on the upswell. Definitely, I think that obviously the shellacking we took against the Chiefs almost the wake up call we needed, because since then, put the Rams to bed, had a bye week, won against the Chargers, which was shutting out the Chargers in the second half, is looking even better now when you consider how close they ran the Chiefs last week, and then totally dominant against divisional rivals. Big game because it's in the division. We're now 4-0 in the division. Can't be caught at the division sort of head to head or anything like that. I think we went from 6th or 7th seed to 3rd seed just by winning that. We're now top of the NFC West, and as you say, the weaponry that is now at Kyle Shanahan's disposal. And I think what showed in Mexico was he's starting to realize that he's got all of these toys to play with, and shared the ball around a bit, didn't just go run, kind of actually used the pass to open up the run, which I think showed a nuance that maybe hadn't been there before. Maybe the trust in Jimmy is starting to come through a little more. He's given some of the throws that Jimmy did on Tuesday morning, especially the Kittle touchdown, the first one, was very reminiscent of other more elite quarterbacks. He stepped through the pocket, took it to the line of scrimmage, all the defenders bit on it, and then Kittle went over the top. I mean, if it would have been another quarterback wearing red throwing to his tight end, people would have been raving over Mahomes and Kelsey. It was exactly the kind of play that would have done. But Jimmy just it's exactly the same. It was done so beautifully. And took 3 steps up in the pocket, went to the line of scrimmage, safeties bit on it, linebackers bit on it, and he just dinked it over the top. It was one of those throws that, I suppose, in the middle of last year, every 49ers fan would have had their head in their hands, not watching the screen, because it would have expected it to have gone straight to an inside linebacker. But it just shows maybe the confidence is there. Maybe that shoulder injury last year was worse than we thought. Maybe the thumb was really hampering him, because some of the stuff that's coming out there now, it's confidence building. And as you say, jumping up top of the division on the upswell, looking at the rest of our run-in, got a bit of a tough Dolphins, Buccaneers, Seahawks kind of short, sharp 3 weeks. But, we've got the Saints this week, Commanders, Raiders, and then the Cardinals again. So if we can get through that sort of Dolphins and Bucks at home, the benefit is it's at home. So those 2 games at home will be big for us. But it's really looking from not great early in the season with the Denver game and the Chicago game. We're really looking strong now, I think.
It'll help as well, Gary, with the quarterback being in the shop window too, isn't it? I mean, he's playing for his career right now, so you couldn't ask for some better for that,
his stats, I think, he's definitely. I mean, he's on a massive incentive sort of contract at the moment, so he's doing well for himself in every game. But as you say, he's also putting himself in the shop window. There's rumours that Derek Carr.
He'll be thinking about the fact that this will probably be his last season as a Niners, and maybe he does want, go out on a high, finish with that ring, and then he can leave and go and start his new challenge somewhere else.
Absolutely. I mean, he's certainly not. It is his last season with the Niners. It doesn't matter even if he walks out with the Lombardi Trophy at the end. We all know that Trey is coming in as QB1, but if he does walk off with a ring, he walks off and,
he gets more money.
He gets a massive. I mean, who in the free agency market is not going to, mortgage a house on a Super Bowl winning quarterback? You can look around the teams and you can go, well, they could really do with a quarterback who manages the game and wins games and does what Jimmy has just done this year. Colts, maybe Vegas, Jets,
Falcons.
because Falcons, you know, there's at least 5, 6 out there that, you know, definitely he could pick and choose. And as you say, Salah hasn't exactly been glowing in, you know, his praise for Wilson in the last week. And there's a link there, obviously. You know, Salah just left San Fran, and he knows what Jimmy can do, and he knows that Jimmy can, you know, rally a locker room and a players play for Jimmy. It could be worse places.
He doesn't have to do much with that offense. You know what I mean? They've got a good running game. He's got good receivers. Tight ends.
Sounds familiar, right?
Get the ball out, so yeah.
Just sounds familiar with what he's got with us. Yeah.
We've just been discussing the Jets earlier on this evening, and they really are a quarterback away from being a really, really, really good side.
Yeah, their defense has absolutely gone. Has stepped
defense
up
is stellar this year, isn't it?
You look at the defense they had last year and how utterly dreadful they were to now having, arguably a top 10 defense.
And
they drafted really well. They're all young. They drafted really well. The rookies are playing to a great level. They've got a defensive-minded head coach because, you know, that's what his strengths are. So that they're all rallying for the coach. You're right. You know, you look around and you say Breece Hall's back, top-class running back. Receivers they've got there, Wilson.
Back up, yeah.
A couple of young receivers there. O-line, a bit of strengthening, and as you say, a decent quarterback. They're definitely not far away from being right in the mix in the AFC, are they? So it's another place. And Jimmy in New York, I mean, that could be worse places for somebody of, you know, to walk into, couldn't it?
If he could convince, if they can convince Elijah Moore to stay, because I know there's been a bit of, you know, argue with him at the moment. If they can convince him to stay, you have Garrett Wilson there who's been brilliant. I mean, you've got everything that you need ready. It's almost ready-made for Jimmy to walk in.
Yeah.
So,
with a team like that, and weapons like that, and the youth that they've got on their side, you don't need an elite quarterback to run that. You just need a capable one, a competent one, and you can do big things. You know. I mean, Flacco,
and that's exactly. Yeah, Joe Flacco was, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Flacco plays out the rest of the season. I mean, or maybe even.
Or who was the quarterback that Mark mentioned? No, White was another boy.
Michael White.
He said White was rubbish. It was somebody else.
I can't remember who he said, but yeah, there is another quarterback kicking
about. There is another quarterback that Mark thinks because he played well in the preseason apparently, but I can't remember what his name was.
Practice squad guy who's been kind of doing scout and whatever else. Yeah, it's amazing that they'll be pulling us. But you're right. I mean, Jimmy's going to have his pick. You know, even now there'll be teams looking at him going, "Hang on, he's stepped into a situation that wasn't great. He's picked up the running. You know, he's picked up the playbook and he's taken the team now. He's turned around." He's leading that team really well. Yes, he's got weapons around him, but every team has weapons as long as you can get the ball from the quarterback to the weapons.
Apart from the Giants.
Apart from the Giants, who've only got one.
The other thing
if it wasn't for his surgery, he probably would have been traded in the off season.
His arm
was okay, he would have been gone.
The other thing that goes in his favour as well is he took all that and he done all that with his head held high and he didn't throw his toys out the pram. There was no screaming or crying or begging to get away. He signed that contract to be his understudy. He was there to, you know, so he's shown that he's a good team player as well. So that can get you a gig somewhere too.
Exactly. I mean, there's a whole lot of talk. You know, the locker room loves him and whatever else. I mean, as you say, he proved that by, you know, surgery didn't, timing wise, whatever else. He knows that didn't quite work out, but you know, he just signed up. Little fuss, just signed. Yeah, I'll be your backup. I don't mind taking a step back. Whatever's good for the team. Granted, he was still getting $6 million or whatever it was. So you know, it was no massive hardship for him either to sit on the bench for the whatever else. But you know, it was all incentivized and whatever else. And you look at the incentives now; they seem cheap. If he makes a run for the playoffs, which we're already looking pretty good for now, that's a masterstroke now. It's looking like from the front office.
Very much.
You saw when he came in, and got that touchdown. The whole team were all over him, happy, cheering, clapping their back. They were just so happy for him. So you can tell that the locker room really, really does like him. Like,
I think the big thing for me, and it always will be, I will always come back to it, is how does he do against the big teams? Because that's what's coming up. That's where he needs to step up. And I mean, you got flattened by KC they're potentially going to be your Super
They're going
Bowl.
to flatten everybody, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, but this is where I think leading into the playoffs now, you've got the Bucks. You could roll them over.
Depending on where they are, exactly. It's one of those, if the Bucks don't win the next 2 games.
And who's after the Bucks?
Seahawks.
And then after the Seahawks?
The Commanders.
So you've got a fairly good run in. I was going to say there's no real...
Once we get past the Seahawks, we've got the Commanders, the Raiders, and the Cardinals, which, Cardinals are done.
So you're Raiders in a position where he can build some confidence. I was hoping you'd have maybe someone like a Bengals or something. Someone who is going to be a challenge
in the mix-ish. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you could arguably say that Washington are going to be in the mix, but they're still not a great team. They've got an okay defense.
Good defense,
getting better.
Good defense, which will help, but depending on how it works out,
They've really got very lucky in how poor the NFC is. What the Commanders, they've got lucky. The NFC's been poor this year. I mean, poor.
It has been It's been the poor younger brother to the AFC this year, isn't it? There's some stellar teams. There's 2 stellar teams. Looks like in the AFC. Sneaky suspicion the Ravens are going to make quite a surge in the AFC. But you're right. The NFC wise, it's been a poor all round sort of division. Even conference. Even there's nothing. The Eagles are the standout, but even then, as you say, they just scraped past the Colts this weekend. So even then,
Dallas is starting to look really good, and I think
Dallas looks good.
There's talk obviously that the Dallas Giants match this on
don't talk about that game.
Is going to be the OBJ game. That's what the big talk is now. Is basically whoever wins that game is going to potentially get OBJ.
Signs OBJ.
Yeah, so it's the OB. That's how the media are playing it. It's the OBJ.
How they're billing it out because it's not being a Thanksgiving game is big enough, right? It's
So
that's going to be a slaughter, that game.
If Dallas can add OBJ to that offense, you're looking at them as potential, Super Bowl
potential number 1 seeds at least. They're at least number 1 seeds in the NFC, I'd say, because their defense is real. And
if Dak plays like he did last Sunday they are potential even without OBJ. If they get Pollard the way he's playing,
cool.
Just start Elliott to keep Jones happy, and then just let Pollard take over.
Just let Elliott. What they did with Elliott and Pollard this game just gone is that'll keep Jerry Jones happy. Give Zeke the ball 2 yards out and let him smash in and get the touchdown. Great, but as you say, Pollard is tearing teams to shreds at the minute. So they've got that side of it. CeeDee Lamb starting to come through. Some of their other receivers. Some of their other receivers are getting fit.
They have a top 5 tight end in Schultz. You've got CeeDee Lamb's a top 5 wide receiver, you would argue. Gallup's a good wide number 2. And you've got 2 RB1s there. And I think, Dak is still a top QB. You just put all of that together with again arguably the best defense in the NFC, along with the Niners. For me it's between.
It's tough to see past that too, isn't it?
If you manage to avoid them in the playoffs and in the
seeding and stuff, it's all going to come down to that, isn't it?
I think a Dallas Niners NFC Championship would be a fantastic game.
That
back to the 80s and 90s. That would be good.
I was just thinking that's a throwback, isn't it? God. In the early 80s and 90s, that was it, wasn't it? If you won that game, it was go and win the Super Bowl because no other team was close to them. But it would be. I think you're right. Those 2 defenses. It's the old adage, isn't it? Defenses win championships, and those are the 2 defenses that look head and shoulders above anybody else. I think stats we've not let a team score a point in the last 3 second half. So 54-0, we're winning the second half in the last 3 games. It's a phenomenal stats, and you think the Rams, the Chargers are no slouches. I mean, I think we were lucky when we played the Chargers, which you kind of need because their two main wide receivers were out, which made a massive difference. So you've got to look at that and go, "Oh, you suck the Chargers out." It's like, yeah, but so we do need a decent test, and I think the Saints this week probably not, but I think that the Dolphins coming to Levi's is going to be the big test because of the McDaniels. That McDaniels offense is purring. They've got it completely different. They've gone for speed.
They're
We've gone for the
Super Bowl, aren't they?
You've got to keep them in it. Tua, Hill, Waddle, the two running backs are really good at 1-2. Mitchell and Mustard. It's a good team.
He's got a couple of touchdowns lately as well. So, and what's his name? Sherfield.
Trent Sherfield, yeah, an ex-49er as well.
Yeah.
It's literally like half of the Miami team is an ex-49ers. There's a scary team, and it will be a really good game. That one, it'll be a real good test for the Niners defense. That's for sure. Because I know they've stepped up and they've done really well in the last couple of games, but have they really been tested? I mean, D-Hop looked really good against us at Levi's. Right. So, and the benefit we might get away, we might be lucky because the Dolphins have to fly out to the West Coast for this week. So they're at the Chargers and then they're at the Niners and they're staying over. So they're not going back and forth. So it's the second game on the 2-week, road trip, if you like. So maybe that might play into our hands. But, it's reaching. I still think it's going to be a game of the week. It will probably get flexed to Sunday Night Football. At the moment, it's not, but it doesn't look like there'll be much else that I can imagine with all the story behind it from the media perspective. McDaniels coming back home, all those ex-49ers players coming back. You've got to assume that they'll flex that to the primetime slot. Another late night. Great.
Over to Miami for
exactly. Trey Lance picked the 3 first-rounders that they've picked up, etc., etc. There's so much story around that one game. How it's not been picked as the primetime game already is beyond me. So you've got to expect they'll flex that one.
Yeah,
that's the big test. Yeah,
for both
teams, I think it'll be.
Whichever team can win that, I think. If I think obviously for you it solidifies that you are 1 or 2 in the division in the NFC
conference.
I think if you lose, it's not the be all and end all for you, but it gives the Dolphins a major boost for their Super Bowl run, and I think they become,
they're in the mix. They know definitely, aren't they?
Much bigger game for them than it is for them. At the end of the day, the Niners are going to be in the playoffs now. That's the way it is. And for me, there's 3 teams in the NFC. There's Dallas, there's Philadelphia, there's San Francisco. They are the 3 teams. I know Minnesota are going really well, but Minnesota, they're going to find a way to throw that away. It's going to be one of 3. And whatever one doesn't play the other in the, kind of divisional round, is going to have a big leg up on them. And, if you get into the Super Bowl, you're playing a team who have been beaten up through the playoffs because they're all really good.
Yeah,
I fancy whoever gets it from the NFC to win the Super Bowl this year. I really do.
Just because, as you say, that the AFC are going to have to beat each other up and claw and fight to get through, whereas the NFC, as you say,
I honestly think if Chiefs get to the Super Bowl, they're winning it. I just think them as a team are
tough to see it. Yeah.
They're just unbelievable. I mean, obviously, Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league, undisputed, I would say. And you just think when he's got such an excellent sort of relationship with Kelsey, I mean, even though he's lost, Mecole Hardman and all of that, he's brought in Kadarius Toney, who seems to have just picked up.
Suddenly remembered he's a wide receiver who plays in the NFL.
Yeah, you've got. I mean.
Not bitter about that, are you, Johnny?
Well, he did bugger all for us, so what the hell? He got injured in his very first training game, so.
Well, he showed that when he hopped over the line, didn't he, for his touchdown?
I thought that was quite funny. It was like, he's pulled or something, and it's like cheeky bugger, yeah. But yeah, I think you're right. It's an interesting one.
I mean, it's a big if that they get there, though. That's the thing, what they've got to get through. And, as the Bills get there, I don't think the Bills will win the Super Bowl if they get to the Super Bowl. I think they'll lose it to the NFC team.
I could see Miami getting there, to be honest. But
yeah, well,
Miami would give the Chiefs a good game.
I've got a cheeky bet on for the Dolphins to win. I put it on at the start of the season at something like 50-1. So I mean, I'd be happy for them to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, take it on here.
But you're right. I mean, you look at the AFC have got to beat each other up. The downside, going back to what you said there, Sam, if the Chiefs do make it to the big one, they've then got a 2-week window for Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes to really nail up a play script. And we already saw when they came to the Niners, when they just took us apart because they'd just spent so long with the right script and just executing some fancy plays and interesting blocks. You imagine what they could, with a 2-week window to get everybody healthy and what they can draft, come up with for the Super Bowl. Yeah.
I just think that together they're almost unbeatable. At times they are almost unbeatable. And that's the big concern, because they don't have I suppose what you would call a stellar defense. They have a good defense, but it's not a stellar defense like the Niners or Cowboys that have. But their offense is just so electric. It doesn't matter what receivers you put in there. It
doesn't matter how long you give them. I mean, it's also that, isn't it? You give them 40 seconds, you think we're okay here, and it's like, they're 60 yards down the field and scored a touchdown, and you know they're going to go to Kelsey. Everybody knows he's going to Kelsey, and yet somehow he still gets the ball to Kelsey. It's like, but come on.
But then, to be fair, it's the same with Stafford and Cup. You know he's going to go to Cup. It's stopping them. That's the big problem. And,
with the Chiefs as well, I mean, as a neutral standpoint, given the fact, my team is going to be nowhere, from a neutral standpoint, I would much rather it was the Chiefs in the Super Bowl than it was the Bills, because that'll be a much better game for me. Like you said, Sam, the Chiefs defense isn't, you're talking a high scoring, good game if it's the Chiefs, whereas if it's the Bills, it's going to be a lot tighter. Their defense is solid as a rock, and you could see them blowing a team out. Maybe not blowing a team out, but you can see it being a low-scoring game per se.
Yeah, I think it'd be. I think something like a Chiefs Cowboys or Chiefs Cowboys, Chiefs Niners. I think it would just be a spectacle, and I think everyone it would. We talk about not necessarily high scoring, but it would be a good game, and you just be great to watch from a neutral perspective. I mean, not personally, I wouldn't
that's what you want, isn't it?
There, but
you'd hate it, obviously. But if you can kind of somehow take out the bias that we all carry, but from a spectacle point of view, we've had some one-sided, Super Bowls, which is like, it's done within the first quarter. You don't want one of those. You want one that's nip and tuck or high scoring. You certainly don't want like a 10-7, do you? When it's like nail biting, as you say, with the Bills, you'll probably get one of those games because the defense will shut the other guys out and whatever else. And it might be a bit of a, Bills. I mean, I said the Bills Niners was kind of probably likely to be the Super Bowl, but you look at it. If those two teams got there, both of those defenses pretty strong. Niners probably a little bit better than the Bills, but then the Bills' offense is probably a little bit better than the Niners. You'd probably be looking at a 14-10 the end of the Super Bowl. You don't want that. You want it to be 38-35, And with the Chiefs, you're likely to get that because their offense, as you say, Sam, would just put up the points against any defense, but their defense isn't that good against a good offense, so people score on them. Granted, sometimes it's in garbage time and it's a bit misleading, but their offense is a lot better. It's their offense against the opposition's defense. I mean, so it would be a better Super Bowl.
You go back to when the Chiefs played the Rams in a regular season game, and I think it finished something like 54-52 or something absolutely insane. And you want something like that in a Super Bowl, just something that you can enjoy, that obviously for the fans watching it, it'll be great to watch, but still be nail biting. But for us neutrals,
for a completely different play,
yeah.
But I suppose
the other thing about the Chiefs as well, you've got is that it's never over with them. They could be 17 points down going into the fourth quarter. If the Buffalo Bills are 17 points down going into the fourth quarter,
too soon.
Yeah, but if you watched the game on Sunday night, when the Chargers scored, the Chiefs had 1:43 to go. You knew they were going to score
Yeah.
because they had their timeouts. You just knew they were going to score. And then bang, they do. So it's just too easy.
It's quite interesting. It's very Brady-esque. If you think a couple of years ago, you knew if you gave the ball back to the Patriots, and when Brady was there, and they had a minute and 10 with maybe two timeouts, even one timeout, you're like, well, they're at least getting a field goal. And it's the same with the Chiefs. You've got to give them literally no time, otherwise you're in trouble.
When you've got the flip side of that as well, and this is where you really start to look at the elite quarterbacks and the good quarterbacks, so of the growing quarterbacks and where the growing pains come from. Because if you look at Chicago, that's 2 weeks in a row now.
They've had the chance and they've not done it.
They've been given the ball back. All they've needed is a field goal with about a minute and change on the clock and not got near it twice.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between, having a real proper elite quarterback who you can put your faith in and you're going to score with that less than 2 minutes on the clock.
And the whole offense knows it as well. That's the thing, isn't it? The whole offense, the whole O-line, the receivers, the running back, they all we're going to get there. So the confidence, whereas when you say Fields and the new ones are like, can we get there? Can we get there? Whereas with the Chiefs, it's like, we're going to get there.
Yeah. There's no anxiety. There's no sort of panic. It is just...
So snatching at a catch or snatching at a throw.
Yeah, I mean, all yes. I mean, you watch some of the things that Mahomes does. He, like you say, he knows where Kelsey is, wherever he is on the pitch, and he will get it to him. 20 yards here, 30 yards there. It's like
round his back, lying on the floor, sidearm. But no look passes, whatever else.
Like 2 weeks ago, Brady did it against the Rams. It didn't have long to go. Just little dinky passes down the field. Get what you're given. Sorry, Sam.
That was. If anything, that was on the
Rams.
That wasn't necessarily. Yeah, it wasn't great. That wasn't.
Yeah, but again, they were giving him the chance. He was taking what they were giving him. He wasn't doing anything silly, but it was their fault for giving him it. But
we opened that up for him and do it.
Yeah, but then Chicago had those chances and couldn't go 10 yards. So,
It helps the defence so much as well. But see when you've got a quarterback like that, when you know that they're going to get you, that if you give them 2 minutes, so you're defending, you're 2 points down, and they're inside field goal range. If you can just keep them out the end zone and you can give that ball to Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady, they're going to score that field goal to win it for you. Just keep them out the end zone and keep a little bit of time on the clock. That helps the defence so much more than them thinking, no, we need to push these guys back beyond field goal. We can't give them field goal.
Can't give them that field goal. You can't give them anything. Yeah. Whereas you say if they get a field goal and they go 2 points up, they're like, well, we're good.
They can have it.
Fine here. Yeah. And it does. It just permeates the whole team. And I think what's starting to see in some of those teams. I think we're seeing it in the 49ers. The defense is starting to trust the offense a little bit. And we saw that this week. The defense were like, they didn't have to snap. They didn't have to make the big play. They were solid. They held them, gave a field goal here and there and whatever else. But they knew, and it starts to build that complementary football. Everyone talks about it. Defense gets you a stop. Offense goes out, scores. Defense goes, well, give them a stop again, and they'll go score again. If that starts rolling, then, yeah, you're right. The defense can go out there for that one drive where it's all or nothing. They can absolutely lay it out there, and if they come out with just a field goal, they go, great. We just know our offense is in.
That's what it was like for us last year. We had that tandem where we just knew the defense would step up when we needed them, and then they knew that the offense would then go off the back on that and get us a good decent lead. And I think, it's when you start building that confidence throughout the whole roster on both sides, that's where you start seeing Super Bowl winning teams. And that's where I think, if you can get that faith at this stage for Jimmy and his offense, that that the defense can turn around and say, right, we can get you that stop. Now you need to go and get the win. That's where I think maybe in the past that Jimmy's fallen down a bit. And if he can build that openness, and I think, like we said, the Finns will be the big test. And then I think the rest of it is building confidence, making sure that you can hit those throws, that you use your offense as much as possible. I mean, bringing in someone like McCaffrey, he opens so much, not only just to him, but to everyone else. And I just think if you can give Jimmy that confidence that he knows that he can make those throws, you've got a winning formula.
Oh, what a formula. I mean, it's been interesting the last couple of weeks with McCaffrey getting more and more into the playbook, the confidence that it has given Jimmy, because he can go through 2, 3, 4 reads and go, doesn't matter. I still don't have to then panic and force a throw into triple coverage, which he's done in the past, because he knows he just looks to the left or the right and goes, and there's Christian McCaffrey, I'll just dump it to him and he can go get 10 yards or whatever it is, because, his yards after the catch at the moment, he's like 8.6 or something, insane. I think I saw the stat, they flashed a stat up in the game in Mexico. It was like the running back with the most yards after the catch, the receiver with the most yards after the catch, and the tight end with the most yards after the catch. McCaffrey, Samuel, and Kittle. It's like when you've got a quarterback who's got those 3 weapons and those safety blankets around him, it can only breed confidence. And as you say, the other guys start to pick up on that. So, yeah, I mean, without getting too excited, that was a big win on Monday. Last night, this morning, whenever it was. I think it was this morning. Timelines are getting a bit drifty now. But yeah, I think it only bodes well, but get past the Dolphins and then it's just don't get injured. And it's that sort of thing, you start to worry. And it's one of the things yesterday, like towards the late, we put Purdy in, we put Mason in, we put O-lineman rookies in there. And it was like, because it was garbage time, and it was the time you were watching it going, as you see, the cut when he kept in against the Rams, against us. It was like, why is he still in? The game's done, and he almost got injured then. And it's like, oh.
Well, while we're on the subject, did anyone see what Purdy did?
He ran the wrong route. Yeah, ran wrong behind. Yeah.
Oh, that was.
Was that the handoff one?
Yeah,
the handoff that wasn't a handoff.
Yeah.
It was like.
It was the fact he went to hand it off, and then he panicked, so ran.
It was like that. It was the face, wasn't it? It was like the handoff, and it was like there's nobody there. Oh, what do I do?
It was like someone tapped him in the wrong shoulder and then snuck round the other side, wasn't it?
So Mason, on your left, fooled you. It was kind of like 2 rookies together, complete panic. But
that was funny. It was good thing it didn't matter.
I mean, it was exactly. It didn't matter, and it was funny because it was like if that would have been Jimmy and Christian, or Jimmy and Elijah Mitchell, when it was like we were 4 points down in the last 2 minutes, which inevitably, most roller coasters of the Niners end up being like that. This was like, it's just funny, and we all laughed about it, and he was like, oh, well, never mind, 3 and out, we just punt it away, it doesn't really matter. And going back to, that complementary football, our punt and our special teams, that's another, we kept pinning the Cardinals in like 1 yard, 2 yards inside their own 5. That's another level that, even if the offense don't quite make it, the defense knows that they're going to get a really long field to work with, because the punt team and the special team have worked really well. And we've done a lot of that where the punters dropped it in the inside the 5. So all of those bits start to come together for you. Yeah. And it's odd because it didn't look like it was. And there's lots of people saying, well, the team hasn't gelled yet. And you're like, sweet 12, surely everybody should have gelled by now. As we say, Craig, you're from your side, you're feeling that the gels come apart and you come out the other end. So how can people be saying the team still hasn't gelled yet? It's like, oh, come on.
Yeah, for me, at this stage of the season and at this stage of the program at San Francisco, we're talking about them like they're coming back from nothing. They were in a championship game last year. This has been getting built for a few years now. This just hasn't came out of the woodwork. So it's more for me, for the Niners, it's time. It's not that it's that this isn't a surprise. You should be in the conversation. It's a Super Bowl winning team.
Mm-hmm.
You be there, and it's. We're going in the absolute opposite direction. It's just a case of hang on and hope for dear life now. That Jordan Love maybe is something that no one seems to be able to see.
There's no point looking at Jordan Love as useless.
Oh, you missed the
you missed the beginning where it was like he thinks he's. Yeah, Craig's calling it a Jordan Love running. Yeah.
It's going to be the Jordan Love running, Sam. I'm telling you, if we lose to Philadelphia and go 4-8, Jordan Love will have the last 5 games. We'll find out whether it's Jordan Love or not. I don't think it is either, but you never know.
Rodgers might just retire there and then, mightn't he?
I think certainly with a bye week coming up, something's going to happen. He's going to throw his toys out somewhere or another for 4-8.
Yeah, you end up just saying bye-bye in this, here we. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Niners, the time is now for me. It's it's not a building job anymore. It's been built. It's now time to.
It's a win now. It's a win this season, next season. It's the window is open for that team with the roster they've got.
You've got a 3-year window, 3-4 year window now. This is where you've got to win it because Kittle's probably only going to be around for 3 years max, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 30 now. How old is he? 30 now?
Yeah, Kittle's about 30 odd. He's
28, 29, 28, 29. He's banged up a bit as well, so he's not got too many full seasons left, as you say. Williams he made 2 seasons more for Trent, maybe.
Apart from that, obviously Trey Lance has got a good 10 years in him. McCaffrey's got a good 5 years in him. Elijah Mitchell's got a good 6 or 7 years in him.
Debo's got probably a few more years and stuff.
Yeah, probably maybe all of them 3 years or so. Ayuk's got 4 or 5 years. So,
all going to need paid though. You can't pay them all is the thing. That's why it's not so much the retirement that gets you in this game as much as the cap.
It's the cap hit, isn't it?
Yeah,
we're going to have to pay Bosa this year. This year we're going to have to pay Bosa. We can't let him go because that would be horrific.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to find the money for him. Then we're going to look at we'll be taking Trey Lance's 5th-year option. We kind of have to. There's some big paychecks coming up, and we need to have rings and we need to have trophies to kind of help that. You're right. It is the win now window.
You only need to look back 10 years and across the division to Seattle to see what happens. They had that Legion of Boom and it was a massive defense. But then they started, they went 2 Super Bowls in a row. Shouldn't have been in the second one. We should have covered onside kicks, but we'll not get into that. Two Super Bowls in a row, and then they had to start paying them. And then started going.
Yep, suddenly they wanted money and they couldn't afford it. Yeah, and it's interesting, just quickly touching on Seattle before we finish. We all thought that Russell was the one who carried Seattle and whatever else, and I think they've been the surprise of the year. It does, doesn't it? It does, which I hate. But it's one of those interesting stories that the NFL does like to throw up.
Yeah, I think
gentlemen, it's interesting. Next week we'll start talking about maybe some of those coaches of the year nominations and players of the year, because we're getting to that sort of stage where you start to think about things like that. There's got to be a couple of interesting storylines coming through there and who people think maybe be getting it. I know Giants coach has got to be in the mix, turning that around. Sure. Pete Carroll's got to be in for the surprise that they are. So it'll be interesting when we start delving into some of those players and coaches of the year. Gents, appreciate your time. It's been another fun hour. Great talking to you guys. Enjoy this week if you can.
Well, I'm not going to enjoy this week. We'll hope you will.
It's Thanksgiving.
I might not even watch the turkey and fall asleep.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving in some of the teams. For some teams, it might be. Gents, thanks for your time. We'll catch up next week. Until then, this has been Football from Across the Pond.